So when this happened, I was a little bit confused what he was talking about. The Sven Vick, the guy that made, or was like the main guy at Larian. I didn't understand it when he was explaining it, but then after I thought about it later, it made perfect sense.
Swen Vincke, CEO
Yeah.
of Larian Studios, head honcho of Baldur's Gate 3 and the Divinity series. This man must be protected at all costs. He is the paragon of what all leaders in the games industry should be, not only because of his ideals surrounding how games should be made and how
This sounds like glazing, but he's completely fucking right. And if anything, he's downplaying it.
people who make them should be treated, but because of how outspoken
right.
he is about his beliefs and how just morally straight those beliefs are and how unyielding those beliefs are. Recall that back in 2023, during Game Awards 2023, Swen Vincke, he was given very little time to talk after he won Game of the Year for Baldur's Gate 3, and so he took to Twitter to kind of finish his thoughts or what he would have said had he not been told to please wrap it up. He said right here, I want to end with a story of a conversation I had a long time ago with a publisher. He told me, luckily for them, games are driven by idealism. He meant it in an exploitative way, but he was right. Games are a unique art form, as important as books, music, or movies. Many developers, myself included, make games because they love seeing others engage with their creation in a way only games can offer. They don't care that much about the money made beyond it being the fuel they need to create new and better games. It's worth reminding everyone that fuel is but a means, not a goal.
That's one of the main things that I think that anybody who thinks like that has like an automatic massive buff to being popular and successful. It's because they don't view money. Money can be like an indicator of success, but it's not the goal. And like money is used as a currency to make more money or to be more successful.
Where to and how we journey are what matter and what we remember. So this is a condensed version of what he said during Game Awards 2024. If you tuned into my live stream, you can see me cheer as Swen Vincke took the stage to announce Game of the Year. But before that, he had this whole speech.
Sony Game of the Year.
Basically, what he would have wanted to say had he been given the time. Last year, he got to say this year, as the Game Awards was a lot more lenient with the amount of time allotted to award winners and to presenters. Even between 2023 and 2024, between Game Awards 2023 and 2024, we saw Swen Vincke speak out via interviews like this one from March 28th, 2024. He once again repeated this kind of exploitative notion that, luckily for us, based on a conversation he had with a publisher, this industry is driven by idealism, by which he really meant this is how we profit. We abuse that idealism. We abuse artists' love for games, forcing them to implement elements that are nefarious, that are kind of a negative force towards the pure artistry of game making.
I think that's also another thing that happens, because I bet when studios and games force developers to put systems into the game that make the game worse, if I think back on like my understanding, at least like my belief of my understanding of psychology, if you force a person who's creative to do something that they don't enjoy, you are going to get a multiplier effect on the negative result that will create. So like, not only are you doing something that like might be bad, but you're also like making that person hate it as well. And it's going to make that person hate their job.
It becomes about, maximizing recurrent revenue. All of that was kind of discussed in this interview, and how models have been pushed too far in pursuit of profits, rapid profits, pursuit of bonuses. And so as a result of that, you saw a whole bunch of people being fired, which is predictable because we've seen it over and over and over.
I think that's what's happening a lot, but I don't think that the firings are just only because of pushing profits. I think a lot of games invest too much money into things that a lot of players don't really care about. And in the process of that, they end up costing too much money. And then the game, like the budget for the game is so big and so large that they have to implement systems and features that are effectively player unfriendly. And that causes people to just not enjoy the game. It's that simple. Yeah, it's a mix of things. Yeah.
Mistreating their employees and treating them as expendable when so much knowledge is built up when you get veteran developers and when you end up firing them, they don't actually know how much that costs them because of all of that knowledge lost that will make future projects just that much more difficult because you're essentially doing a hard reset on the kind of experience and knowledge that is built up. So all these things Swen Vincke has talked about before. But then here we have Swen Vincke in the Game Awards 2024. And the choice words you had to pick out here, I just kind of want to play this for you guys. Swen Vincke really does give me hope that more leaders like these can arise, that Swen Vincke can inspire other developers.
The reason why Larian is successful is because they don't have, like, while they do have investors, for example, Tencent owns part of Larian, they maintain their own autonomy. And the issue is when a publisher or like a board of directors or some form of higher power comes in and effectively corrupts the game in order to make it congruent with what their goals are. Because like every single time that you have like a higher degree of investor, their goal is not to make a good game. Their goal is to make money. Now, you could say you could make money by making a good game, but these two things are not necessarily one and one.
Developers to lead like Swen Vincke does and have the ideals that Swen Vincke holds. He just offers this cozy sense of comfort that you can have integrity in the art of making games while still being incredibly successful and it being a path forward for not just the likes of Larian, but for all other AAA publishers who have kind of been led astray by greed. Now, speaking of cozy, that brings us to the sponsor of today's video.
And that's what happens, right? I mean, Tencent space is fucked, though. They hardly micromanage, especially for Western audiences. Well, like, if you were Tencent, do you want to micromanage, or do you just want to buy a cookie factory that makes cookies? Why would you want to micromanage? It just makes you look bad. And also, it builds their brand. Like if if people are reluctant for Tencent to come into the market, like the Western market, well, if Tencent's name is behind like Baldur's Gate 3 and Path of Exile 2, a lot more people are going to be accepting of that because they're going to think to themselves, oh, okay, well, this game, like these guys can't be that bad if they're involved with these really good games.
Vessi, makers of stylish, innovative, waterproof shoes that I've been daily driving for a couple years now. The models I've got for you here are the Stormburst
Dry
Low Top,
socks,
which are closer to traditional daily sneakers, and the Stormburst High Top, whose taller collar and exterior ruggedness make them especially great for the winter. Both of these are designed with materials that keep your feet cozy and warm, offer protection from snow and grime, and offer lots of exterior grip for any outdoor situation, which kind of make them a perfect gift.
We
as
actually
the
had the
holidays
sponsor
draw
for
near.
Steak and Eggs.
I mean, these look really great with clean and sleek designs that go with tons of outfits, and they're really easy to put on and really comfortable to wear thanks to their lightweight, flexible, and breathable design, all while fully maintaining their waterproof properties. To be fair. And when I say waterproof, I mean waterproof. I've tried all kinds of tests and experiments to see just how well these shoes repel water, and yeah, they've yet to fail me. Not a single drop of water has so much as grazed my socks and feet. Even in LA, we get some rain every once in a while, and with the less predictable winter weather, wearing Vessis means that I never have to worry about surprise rain as I stroll through the city. And with the Stormburst models in particular, I get to greet the winter season with confidence. And you can get your Stormburst Vessis or surprise your loved ones with them by going to Vessi.com, where you can shop Vessi's waterproof collection for only $99. All right, so let's take a look at this segment of the Game Awards 2024 live stream where Swen Vincke had the following to say.
I realize you guys have been sitting here for over 3 hours, but I still have some time credits from last year to cash in. So it turns out that not only will I be the one who will know as first which game wins tonight, but I actually also know which game is going to win next year, the year after, and the year after. Now, how do I know this? Well, an oracle told me. She said, change is coming. It's a modern oracle, so they made me sign an NDA, but I trust all of you. I know you can keep a secret.
2025 is going to be, it's going to be Grand Theft Auto 6, and 2026 is going to be maybe Witcher 4. Good point. Could be Witcher 4.
You will never leak it.
Yeah. As you'll see, this oracle is nothing but common sense, moral integrity, and
Astrobot 2?
Passionate
Stop, bro.
drive for
Stop.
creative output in a medium that is so beloved by many.
The Oracle told me that the Game of the Year 2025 was going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost.
It is stupidly simple. Like, obviously, the process of making games is incredibly complex. It's a multi-year endeavor with a lot of moving parts. But the ideals that pave the road towards studios that rise the status of Larian, that rise the status of your FromSofts and your seed projects, that pave the road to franchises that maybe start out small with a niche, dedicated, loyal fan base,
PoE
but
is a
then
good
eventually
example.
becomes mainstream. All of that comes from what he's about to explain here.
Yeah,
the ideals
PoE
behind
is
this
a great
really is
example of that.
stupidly simple. And when you look at all of the games that have won Game of the Year or been nominated for Game of the Year that followed this exact guideline.
Studio made their game because they wanted to make a game that they wanted to play themselves. They created it because it hadn't been created before.
Because it hadn't been created before is a big one, with so many companies pursuing trends
I
instead
actually don't even agree with that. I think that if you want to make a game that people have made before, but you just do a better job at it, I think people will buy it. I think you can reinvent the wheel, and if it's a really good wheel, people will buy that wheel too. That's fine. It's just the quality has to be immaculate. Like, Astrobot's is probably the best example of that. Like, Astrobot, I mean, it's Mario, basically, right? In a lot of cases. And, like, look at PoE 2. PoE 2, like, took a lot from Diablo.
setting their own, it all just kind of becomes samey and stale. But then there are those developers who are the ones who kind of found a whole genre, or who take a genre that exists and evolves it to new enough heights. Instead of doing stuff that market research says you should do, they're doing things that market research don't even know about yet, and that in turn...
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, the people that really know their shit, like, how do you possibly know what people are going to like in 6 years? Like, think about it. If you're releasing a game and your game was coming out today and you've been working on it for 6 years, you could have potentially prototyped that game after Fortnite. Think about how long ago Fortnite was. Are people still interested in that kind of game? Maybe, probably not, though.
Are going to draw a lot of attention because it's new.
You
and
can't
fresh
build
and
things off
interesting.
of trends.
They didn't make it to increase market share. They didn't make it to service a brand. They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design.
Keep in mind that
It did not serve the game design. Oh, I think that it does serve the game design. It serves to make it worse. Every game that has a store, the game revolves around the store. That's what happens. Sooner or later, it might not happen immediately, but sooner or later, that's the way it goes. Because that's the way the game makes money.
Swen Vincke is not just the developer, he's actually the CEO. He's the head executive of the company that developed and published Baldur's Gate 3. And this is how this leader thinks. Not only did he never enforce
PoE. PoE is designed for you to spend money on the store. It is. It is. Like, I love PoE, but it's designed for you to be inconvenienced and then need to spend money on the store. I'm the biggest simp for the game, but we have to look at facts.
shady monetization elements being
They deserve
included
it. I agree.
in games like Baldur's Gate 3. He full-on
But it
forbade
still
it.
is
It
there.
wasn't just that he didn't suggest it, he didn't allow it, period. He said, no, we're drawing some lines because he actually has moral boundaries. Imagine if someone like him was at the head of the likes
I
of...
don't even think that it's moral. Like, I mean, is it immoral to have microtransactions in a video game? I personally don't think so. I just think it sucks. That's it. I think it just sucks. Like, I mean, there's no, like, morality and, like, virtue with this. It's just annoying. I don't like it.
EA, Take-Two, Ubisoft,
It's not visionary?
so on and
No,
so
it's not.
forth. The kind of output we'd see from those beloved franchises that have become so stale or so corrupted.
They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted in function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow.
Yeah.
They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun. They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games.
I think that's what happens, is that when studios try to force developers into putting things into the game that just make the game worse, what it does is it trains developers to not care about the game. Because, like, I bet if you talk to a lot of the guys that work on a game like, Call of Duty or, like, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they probably don't like the fact that there's items in the store. Like, a lot of the actual on-the-ground, like, everyday, in-the-trenches developers, I bet most of those guys feel the exact same way that we do. And I bet even the game directors do. Now, they might view this as a necessary evil, but they do view it as an evil. Yeah, holding stuff back for DLC? Yeah, I bet they don't like it either.
Really that simple, said the Oracle.
You can say what you want about Nintendo, but one thing that's been consistent about that company throughout the years is that respect for the employees, the sheer value that Nintendo places in the talent that they have.
I do have to say that it is really cool for me to see the same guys that I grew up reading their names on, like, the Super Mario World credits running Nintendo now. Like, you never really think about that, but, like, that to me is so fucking awesome.
Cuts that executives took during Nintendo's roughest years because they realized how important it was, above all else, to retain the talent that makes the products that they output, that make the money for the company possible. Those industries.
He's completely right about this too, by the way. That's the ship of Theseus, like, metaphor I was talking about how a lot of companies become effectively, it's like this is a possessed, it's like the corpse of a company that's been reanimated, and it's not the same as it used to be. Right?
Leading game releases.
I think many studios are like
of this passing down of knowledge from veteran to veteran, who then becomes wiser and more experienced, and instead of getting fired and having all of that knowledge and experience and know-how and wisdom getting lost, all of that continues to be passed down, and all of that knowledge, experience, and wisdom continues to build, and that paves the road to newer innovations, to better workflows, and to the level of creativity and pursuit for quality and ambition that can be realized as a result of all that built up knowledge, wisdom, and experience that can only come from treating developers with respect. And you talk about respect for the...
I think also, like, I mean, I think it's probably okay for me to say this, but, like, a lot of times whenever we put on events, the events that our production staff always had been the most enthusiastic about had been the events that were purely for fun and not sponsored events. Those are the ones where people start getting really creative. They're like, oh, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we do that? I think that happens probably everywhere. So, like, it's probably true with, like, movies. It's probably true with, what do you call it? With video games. It's true with putting on an event. Of course, right?
Players, you look at what Baldur's Gate 3 has done, and it's been nothing but respect. There's nothing that was paywalled in some weird, shitty way. All of the games...
And it also respects the audience, too. Like, I've seen a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 clips where you can do some really edgy, bad stuff in the game, and it respects the maturity of the audience to not try to grandstand and patronize them, which is a big component.
Densely packed content was offered in a single, easy-to-follow transaction with no charts involved as to what editions give you what. They went into early access and really ensured that they got as much feedback from players as possible before finalizing a game and turning it into something truly epic and on a scale that we really don't even see from some of the biggest AAA publishers whose strict deadlines and whose strict guidelines on how these developers need to make games and what they need to implement and the kinds of schemes that they need to add. All of that diminish developers' ability to...
That's one of the things that I feel like gacha games are running into now, is that every single gacha game plays, looks, and behaves the exact same. And there are like little nuances that are different with each one, but if you look at the DNA, it's pretty much all the same.
Make the
Yeah,
game of
they're
their
too
dreams
formulaic.
and to make it of the highest quality. When you give developers the ability to make what they really want to make without
They're
compromises,
good compared to Western games.
and to give that to customers and players in the most reasonable way possible, you pave the road to successes like your Elden Rings, your Baldur's Gate 3s, your Cyberpunk 2077s. This is why indies have taken off so much, because they embody what Swen Vincke just talked about here.
Well, Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie studio. They don't have a publisher. What makes you an indie studio? Not having a publisher makes you an indie studio. That they are. Like, that's the big difference. Is that it's usually very big publishers that come in and try to change what the goal of the game is.
In terms of idealism, they're all about just like wanting people to relate to that passion for this idea, that this vision that they had, that they can then share with the world. And it can be something as simple as Balatro, something of a humbler budget made by a single person who managed to like sweep at the Game Awards because of the idealism that this individual had. They did not design Balatro with this preordained plan that this was going to make so much freaking money and win all of these awards. They just had this idea of like, this would be fun. I'd love to make this. And they did. And the resonance that such a well-crafted game had is kind of what led to everything else. It's what led to the revenue. It's what led to the fame. It's what led to the acclaim.
It's funny because this happens with a lot of streamers too. Like, if you guys ever like think about a streamer that was really popular because they just did what they wanted to do, but then after they, you know, got some sort of like threshold or something happened, then they got more focused on like metrics or numbers or money or something like that, and then they stopped doing everything else and they only did one thing.
All of that wasn't pre-planned. The core kind of intuition.
Like, I'm not, by the way, I'm not calling out any individual streamer, and a lot of you guys, like, I disagree with what your examples are, but I'm just saying, like, it is very common, and it's not just with games.
Went into a game like Balatro was, what's fun for me? What do I need to share with the world? What do I have to say to the world? What kind of fun do I have to offer to the world through the artistry that I'm about to imbue? There's just this earnestness that you can feel exude from a game that was made by developers with ideals like Swen Vincke, whether we're talking about on a AAA level or on an indie level. To have someone like Swen Vincke, who is in such a position where, you know, when he talks, people will listen. When he talks, there's a ripple effect. When he talks about idealism, it resonates. Coming from an authentic human being with an authentic love for art, with an authentic love for this nerdy hobby of ours, if you will, an authentic love for the very special medium that is video games that has shaped so many of our lives. And when you see someone like that say something so true, so earnestly and authentically sincere, and make so much.
Well, the other thing that's funny about it is that even people that might disagree with them, you can't disagree with the results and the numbers. The fact is that every single one of the games that comes out that's like that is very popular and successful. And so you can complain that gamers, you don't like what gamers like or anything else. None of that matters, because at the end of the day, if you have people that are buying these games and playing them, that's the only thing that really makes a difference. That's the only thing that people really care about.
Sense.
Yeah, money
and
talks,
just
exactly.
has this goodness about him in the way he envisions the future of gaming, or what it should be. That's going to make people more aware that people like Swen Vincke exist. And so when we do see the bullshit that other AAA publishers try to pull, I think the masses will be much more resistant against the normalization of what AAA publishers are trying to pursue. It'll allow people to see that not every CEO has to be an Andrew Wilson or a Yves Guillemot or a Strauss Zelnick. We can have people in executive positions like Swen Vincke, and when you do have someone like that at the head, it all trickles down.
I think the real problem is that AAA studios are too big. They have too many people on payroll. They have too many too many expenses. and it causes them to have to water down and add features into games that players don't want. That's the real fundamental issue, is that these ships are too big to be able to navigate. Too many cooks. I think it's just example of it just being too big and it being crushed under its own weight.
And
That's
when that
it.
kind of idealism trickles down all throughout a studio, that's when you get magic, because then everyone's on board, including the captain steering the ship.
Yep.
And he's steering that ship towards gaming paradise, essentially. So I don't know. I know I'm spouting a bunch of mumbo jumbo right now, but it's just nice to see someone at the level of Swen Vincke having the balls to actually say something, defend gaming, defend its developers, defend the players and the customers, and defend the medium as a whole. It's him calling out the entire games industry and being like, hey, games industry, can we just take better care of this medium and the people?
The thing is that the reason why he's able to say that is because everybody bought Baldur's Gate 3. The reality is that the people that make video games don't really decide which video games are popular. The players do. So if you don't like a certain type of game, stop supporting those games. And I think that's usually what happens. Then those games end up falling off massively. Yeah, don't buy it.
Behind it who make it possible.
And then they're
so
done.
that we can make greatness and also, make good business decisions out of it as well along the way. Like, all of this is not mutually exclusive. It just gives hope that more people like this can step into the games industry and achieve the success that Swen Vincke has with that idealism. This is
think
not
about
just
how much Baldur's Gate 3 elevated Larian. Like, Larian wasn't a massive studio before then. Like, I mean, yeah, they had Divinity Original Sin, and, they were popular, people knew them, but, like, Baldur's Gate 3, like, took them up into the fucking, to the moon, right? Like, that's what really kind of put them on the map.
idealism that will lead to ruination. This is idealism that has time and again shown can lead to industry-leading success. Sales and acclaim that AAA publishers can only dream about because they're going about it in just the worst way, in the wrongest ways possible. But yeah, anyway, ramble over. I just wanted to highlight this moment as among the best parts of Game Awards 2024, which overall was actually a really good show. Sven, keep fighting the good fight and keep making awesome shit.
I think that a lot of game developers think the exact same way that he does. The issue is that there are investors and there are the companies get too big, and then the company has to make decisions that are bad for players. That's it. It's literally that simple. I don't think that most people that are making video games want to make like soulless cash grabs with microtransaction shops. I don't think that's what they want to do.
Just keep doing what you do, man, because the industry needs that kind of leadership. But that's just one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Swen Vincke's speech and the ideals that he pursues game development with. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.
Well, I think he's right.
A couple of years
give
ago,
me a
I made a
second.
video.
Sorry about that.
Swen Vincke.
What I think happens in a lot of cases is that these different developers, they try to focus a lot on like making the game good, and I think that they have a lot of like genuine like enthusiasm for making a good quality, high quality game. But then when the game isn't making enough money, or it's projected to only sell so many copies and then it won't make enough money, that's when you see these additional features be added in that end up making the game worse. And I think that having investors, because you've got to keep in mind, a lot of the investors, there's a video, a lot of the investors, they don't care about the long-term sustainability of the studio. They don't. All they want to do is have and to make 20% more revenue for this month or this quarter and then leave. And that's the problem. And I think that's also the reason why, studios, like especially like Japanese studios, because I don't think that they say, like, I don't live in Japan. I don't really understand this, but like it sure seems to me like Japan doesn't have the same corporate culture that we do. And because that they don't have the same corporate culture, that's why you have studios like Capcom, Nintendo, and From Software over in Japan that are making these insanely good, amazing fucking games, and they're not beholden to some, very, very short-term philosophy. It's worse. No, my understanding is that it's worse for like employees, but in terms of like the prospects that they put on the company and like the philosophy that they have for growing the company is much different. Like, obviously, corporate culture in Japan, people, I don't live there. I don't know. I hear it's bad, but what the fuck do I know? And so, anyway, it's worse in terms of nothing ever changes. Yeah, but that's a good thing if you've got something that works in the first place, right? And so that's it. How do you feel about the different game versions? I mean, deluxe packs or ultimate packs, investors have no chill. I think that if you can buy a game and get all the content inside of the game, and that's all you have to do, then it's a good thing. If you have extra deluxe packs that give additional content, then I think it's really cringe and annoying. So like that's the way that I draw the line personally. I think everybody's going to look at it differently, but yeah, like day one DLC I think is like really, really stupid. Like in general, that kind of stuff really sucks. COVID pushed the bar high for corporate models because now they can't come down. Yeah, exactly, right? PayPix complaining that they can't be PayPix. Yeah. Working more hours is counterproductive. It does not have a net benefit result. Well, I don't know, right? I think it just depends. But what I'm saying with this is that I do think that like the best games now, and we're seeing this with indie games, so many games are coming out now that aren't made by massive studios that are like huge sellers and massively popular. Like if I go and I look at, for example, like any like SteamDB, like how many of these games are massive AAA studio games that are at the top? Many of them are not. Like as far as I know, War Thunder isn't, Baldur's Gate 3 isn't, now it is. It was a AA studio. Delta Force, I don't really know about Delta Force. Helldivers 2 wasn't. Like many of these games, like Rust wasn't. So many of them are popular and they're not made by these massive studios at all. And I think that's just what's going to continue. Is that you're going to have these smaller studios that can be more agile. They can respond to like player demands more easily. And you're seeing, I mean, look at even PoE 2. Yesterday was Sunday. It hit over 500,000 players. This is an incredible level of, what do you call it? Of like player retention. This is insane player fucking retention. Disgusting. Look at this, 437,000. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to continue and it's going to get even more popular, right? And not PoE 2 specifically, but like just the entire idea of making smaller scope games and not relying on a massive AAA publisher in order to make something happen. Marvel Rivals player retention has been insane as well. Well, like, let me see that. I think Marvel Rivals is still probably growing, right? Yeah, it kind of is. It's doing very well. I'll be curious to see it in a couple of months. Like, as I said, I'm not, I don't believe it's going to continue growing, but we're going to have to wait and see.